Welcome into the Pineys, the North Carolina Sports Awards here on the North Carolina Sports Network. This year's show, our third on NCSN, is presented by McConnell Golf. I am Mike Waddell, and tonight we honor the athletes, coaches, teams, events, and moments that define yet another year here in the bold North State, a big sporting year indeed. But first, we're talking about the two-time North Carolina Sportscaster of the Year. He's done it all. He is the biggest sports brain that we have. David Glenn, welcome to the Pineys for a third year in a row.
Well, thank you, Mike. That is a great introduction, and we do have yet another great year to celebrate in the world of sports here in what you love to call the bold North State. All five of our honorees are either joining us in person on today's show, or in the case of, let's say, Team of the Year, somebody has to represent the team. So we have a heck of a fun guest with that in mind as well. Or in the case of an event, we have a fantastic person representing an event. So we'll get to all five categories. We have some star-studded guests, and I am ready to dive in with you.
Our years go from August through the end of July. Then we have the Pineys. Then we have football season. But David, as we look back all the way to almost a year ago this same time, what has made the last 12 months in sports stand apart here for you in North Carolina?
Yeah, I'd say there's two main things in my eyes, and I'll be brief with these. Number one, when you have a champion to celebrate in one of America's most popular sports, that's a big deal. Our state's never won a Super Bowl, right? Never won an NBA title. Only so often can you win a men's college basketball title in college athletics. This year, of course, we have a national champion to celebrate at the professional level. And then the other thing that made this past 12 months stand out, I think, is just the diversity of the excellence. And what I mean by that is there were great stories at the college level, the pro level, and other levels of sports here in North Carolina. And there were teams and coaches and athletes that were highly impactful in pretty much every major sport. We have football represented in the Pineys this year. We have basketball represented in the Pineys this year. We had finalists in the sport of baseball. Hockey is represented in a big way in the 2026 edition of the Pineys. Golf, motorsports, soccer, but also we have a big dollar fishing tournament, for example, that's become extremely famous right here off the coast of Carolina. And there's a wide array, as you know, Mike, as a former athletic director, of great stories in Olympic sports, team-wise or individually. So when you have a champion to celebrate and you have that many great finalists to celebrate from different levels in different sports, that is what made this past year, I think, even a little bit more special than most years.
We've got a lot of categories to get to. We're going to get to handing out the hardware. Coming up next as you're tuned in to the North Carolina Sports Network and the 2026 edition of the Pineys.
On the road to Augusta, we honor the places where history lives, not just in trophies, but in the soil beneath your feet. That's the spirit of McConnell Golf. What began with the preservation of Donald Ross's final design at Raleigh Country Club has grown into the largest owner of premier private clubs in the Southeast. Today, their portfolio spans 17 exceptional properties across the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Virginia, featuring courses designed by legends like Ross, Pete Dye, Tom Fazio, Arnold Palmer, and Greg Norman. And consider this: Sedgefield Country Club, home of the PGA Tour's Wyndham Championship, is also where the Atlantic Coast Conference was founded back in 1953. That's not just golf history, that's sports history. McConnell Golf lives by a simple motto: pure golf for the true golfer. Championship conditions, remarkable hospitality, and a family-focused club lifestyle that extends well beyond the fairways. To learn more about this extraordinary collection of clubs, visit McConnellGolf.com. McConnell Golf, where championship golf meets lasting tradition.
Welcome into the Pineys, the North Carolina Sports Awards, presented by McConnell Golf. I am Mike Waddell alongside David Glenn, and our first Piney of the night, Athlete of the Year, is presented by Excel Moving and Storage. David, set that field of nominees for us. Who was in conversation for this Piney?
You had Cameron Boozer of Duke from college basketball. You had Caleb Wilson of UNC in college basketball. J.C. Horn of the NFL's Carolina Panthers. Chloe Humphrey from UNC women's lacrosse. You had Con Knipple, remember, now representing the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA. Kyle Larson of Hendrick Motorsports was a finalist. Darian Mensah for what he did for the Duke Blue Devils at the quarterback position. Guy named Donovan Phillip from NC State men's soccer. You have Jaccob Slavin of the Carolina Hurricanes, Jordan Stahl of the Carolina Hurricanes. A guy named Cameron Young was a finalist, Mike. He is one of the best players on the PGA Tour. He happens to be a Wake Forest University product, and he happened to win the 2025 Wyndham Championship in Greensboro with a record-tying score last year. He is truly one of the best golfers in the world. So there were other finalists. Manaka Matsukubo was one of the best players in the NWSL, representing the North Carolina Courage here in our backyard. So there were about a dozen finalists, and all of them did something special in their respective sports.
Okay, so you just gave us the unabridged dictionary of this category. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to sort through. So how did you come up with who is the Piney recipient for 2026?
Yeah, well, the biggest vote getters included, remember, Cam Boozer of Duke was the National Player of the Year in college basketball and an ACC champion and an NBA lottery pick and an Elite Eight participant, but he did not finish with the most votes. Similarly, Darian Mensah, Duke football, ACC champion, 2025 ACC championship game MVP, all ACC leader in passing efficiency. Again, great year, but not the leading vote getter. Donovan Phillip of NC State, by the way, was the Herman Trophy winner in all of college men's soccer after leading the NCAA with 19 goals. I told you what Cameron Young did on the golf course, and most fans are familiar. Kyle Larson, for example, of Hendrick Motorsports, was the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series champion, and that would have taken place, of course, in our 12-month window. The final three, Mike, were Cam Boozer of Duke and then two members of the Carolina Hurricanes. Jordan Stahl, team captain, veteran, playoffs MVP, and Jaccob Slavin, who not only helped the Carolina Hurricanes win that Stanley Cup, in the same 12-month period, Mike, Jaccob Slavin helped Team USA, our country, to the gold medal at the Winter Olympics in Italy. So it was close, but Jaccob Slavin ended up as our 2025-2026 Athlete of the Year in the Pineys.
So here it is, David Glenn's interview with Jacob, and it's brought to you by Excel Moving and Storage. It's the Piney for Athlete of the Year.
Our next guest has joined us multiple times over the years in other contexts, but this time we get to call him a Stanley Cup champion and the winner of the North Carolina Sports Network's 2025-2026 Athlete of the Year honor. Remember, last summer, this award went to Duke University basketball star Cooper Flagg, who was the National Player of the Year for the Blue Devils, and then the NBA's #1 overall draft pick. Well, our 2026 winner, Carolina Hurricanes star Jaccob Slavin, had an even more unusual combination of accomplishments. Back in February, he helped lead the United States to our nation's first men's ice hockey gold medal at the Olympics since 1980. And in June, of course, he helped your Carolina Hurricanes to just the second Stanley Cup in franchise history. Along the way, Jacob became just the second American ever to become an Olympic gold medalist and a Stanley Cup champion in the same year. That combination led to the guy they call Slavo being the #1 vote getter in our statewide voting this summer for the 2026 statewide Athlete of the Year honor. Jaccob Slavin, congratulations and welcome to the 2026 edition of the North Carolina Sports Awards. How are you?
I'm doing well. What an introduction. Thank you for having me.
Well,
Yeah, it was a fun year.
it has been. Let me take you back, and then we'll pick your brain about various aspects of this great story. When you were growing up in Colorado with your mom and your dad and your four siblings, hockey was already a big part of your world. What are your earliest memories of either dreaming of being an NHL player someday, or maybe you specifically dreamed of raising the Stanley Cup someday?
Yeah, growing up, it was a competitive household for sure. Lots of mini sticks. Grew up at the rink watching my siblings play. For myself, trying to think of the earliest memories I had of, playing in the NHL. I think any kid at early, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, but I watch my son do it now, so maybe I was even younger. But pretending game seven, Stanley Cup final, overtime, you score that game-winning goal in mini sticks and you go wild or whatever it is. But I feel like earliest memories of actually realizing it could happen, probably not until my late teens when I started playing junior hockey and even dreamt about really thinking, all right, maybe I can play in the NHL one day. As a kid, it was definitely just dreams, but reality of it possibly happening probably not until my teens, late teens.
Is it true that you're now, I think he's 4 years old, maybe, Charlie, actually practiced or mimicked how to raise the Stanley Cup with a water bottle at home or something before
Yeah.
you actually got to raise the cup, and then he's on the ice with you soon after that.
Yes, yeah, he's 4 years old now, and then he would practice all the time in the playroom before we actually won, but then now that we've actually won, we got one of those fake little Stanley Cups, and that might be his favorite toy. I think it's just about every day in the playroom. He's taking it around, lifting it up, giving it a kiss, letting his sister lift it, letting whatever friends over at the time lift it. He always makes sure to tell people, no, you got to kiss it. You got to kiss it. And so he has fun with it.
I did some quick math, and I think you were about 10 years old when that Miracle movie came out, celebrating, of course, Team USA, Coach Herb Brooks, team captain Mike Eruzione, the goaltender Jim Craig, all that stuff, of course, before you were born. But what do you remember? Did you see it in the theater? Did you see it later? Have you seen it many times since then? Because now here you are, an Olympic.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember for the first time I saw it, but since it's come out, I've seen it not too many times, but multiple times, probably a year. I remember right before we left for the Olympics, my wife, she had seen it before, but none of my kids had seen it. And so they watched it together. And my wife, I think watching it that time was a little more emotional for her, just watching through it and then realizing that we had the chance to go over to Italy and do it too. So, everyone in the family's seen it now, but the amount of times I've seen that movie growing up, and then even being at Colorado College and having the Broadmoor right there, just once I got to see kind of hit in a whole new way when I would watch it again too. So special movie for sure. Definitely one that you love watching over and over again.
I will not ask you to do the Herb Brooks speech, but that is one of my favorite scenes. I could almost do it. Great moments are born of great opportunity. Yeah. You may know that whole script. Do you have a favorite moment from that movie that just resonates with you as a hockey player or as a guy who got to wear the red, white, and blue?
Yeah, I think back to the movie. I think back to just our time in Italy as a team. And I feel like, we were all kids just in older bodies, right? Playing the game over there in Italy. And so you think back to all the times you watch the movie, and what always stands out in my mind, I think, is the quote when they're just sitting around center ice, stretching after a practice, talking about his mom's meatballs and you boy, or whatever it is, and you keep eating them, I'll keep making them, and but that's how it is when you get on the team too. It's just those little moments where you're just joking around with each other, having fun, playing the game you guys love, but doing it together.
There is no bad choice between the feeling of celebrating with basically an all-star team. You didn't get to practice with those guys. You didn't go through, a decade of highs and lows. How do you compare whatever feeling of knowing you represented your nation, your red, white, and blue to one championship, the gold medal, but in another context closer to home here, some of those guys, you rode the roller coaster for over a decade together before raising that Stanley Cup.
Yeah, when I've been asked this question before so far this summer, it's always been both are amazing.
Yeah,
You
that's the
can't
starting
separate
point.
you can't separate that. They're both amazing in their own way. Like you said, wearing the red, white, and blue, absolute honor. Anytime you have a chance to represent your country, the people that I know that have served this country and been willing to fight for this country, and you can't thank them enough. And so to be able to represent the country in that way, wearing those colors, and to see their excitement of you wearing the red, white, and blue, obviously in the sports world, but what it means to them and the flag, what it means to them, it's such an honor, and to represent the country and then to win, obviously it's the cherry on top. And so nothing, can't take anything away from that. But like you said, I think for me, being in Carolina for so long now, and finally bringing the cup back to the city, the community that my wife and I have built here. This place is home to us now, and we've been here. This has been home to us ever since my rookie year. Actually, we stay here during the summer times, and the amount of people that we've created a community with outside of hockey. And then not only that, but then like you said, Jordo, Fishy, Svetch, Marty, all like these guys we've been through grinding with. Roddy, obviously, he's been here my whole career too, assistant coach at first, and then takes over as a head coach. Like, we've been in this together for so long. And so to be able to have that relational equity with those guys over the past 11 years, to finally do it together is just is amazing. And so I know Jordo said it before, but he's just like, I was so excited for you guys. He's like, I've done it before, but to be here for so long and to watch you guys grow up and mature into the men and players that we've become, he's like, to finally be able to win with you guys, he's like, that's special. And so in the same light, just being able to win with this team was awesome.
I'm old enough that I was a young American boy, 10 or 12 years old, when the 1980 team won it all. And I've actually had the privilege of interviewing Kenny Morrow, the bearded defenseman from Team USA in 1980. And his longtime punchline was, yeah, I'm a one-man trivia question answer, because he was the only American, I should say. So now there's two of you. So I'm curious, have you ever communicated with him, met him, is there any connection there beyond the two of you guys being now the only correct answers to that American Gold Cup combination?
Yeah, so he shot me a text the morning after we won
Cool.
Vegas, and yeah, super sweet. Just he was just saying how awesome of obviously a victory it was, a year it was, but he was just like honored to be able to have your name right next to mine now in that trivia question. Basically, he was just saying he was super happy for me. So definitely a nice text to get from him.
You mentioned you and Kylie making this your home to a great degree. Obviously, your daughter Emmy, your son Charlie, they call this home as well. What all went into that? I mean, you were a young guy when you were a rookie for the Canes more than a decade ago. And a lot of guys either go to their home country or the hometown and call that a home. You guys have deep roots here where there are, you have your favorite ice cream shop, your favorite barbecue place, all these family and friends, Bible study, your church, all that stuff. It just sounds like you've chosen to do what Rod Brind'Amour often talks about. He has made Raleigh his home for 25 years at this point. You've made it yours for more than a decade. Why?
Yeah, I think the short answer would be my wife's from St. Louis area. I'm from Colorado. And so after that rookie year, we were trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to do. And her and I truly never experienced the church community like we did that first year that we had here. And so the people that we met here, obviously it was a tough decision to not go back to her family, not go back to my family full time. And I think we ended up taking like a 6-week trip that summer anyways. And so got 3 weeks with her family, 3 weeks with my family. But to be able to call this home was really just because of the community that we had built in such a quick time, and a lot of friends that we had made right in our stage of life, or just ahead of us in the stage of life with having kids or super young kids. And so we really just felt like this was home right away, and we kind of didn't want to leave that. And so it was one of those things that wasn't necessarily an easy decision, but now looking back and seeing the God's plan through all of this, it's one of those things where it was the right decision for sure.
Speaking of God's plan, we would love an update on your official day with the Stanley Cup. I have read about the possibility of a barbecue place and an ice cream place and friends and family, etc. But in that earlier part with the Cup, when you guys just had it and the parade and the aftermath, did you really take it to Bible study? Did Charlie actually get to drink out of it? Because it sounded like you had an early time with the Cup, and I don't even know when your official day with the Cup might be.
Yeah, so that right away I mean, right after the cup, we took it to the golf course up in the mountains, and then when we were on our way back from the mountains, it was a Thursday, and I go to a Friday morning Bible study, and I was sitting up front near the guy near Phil, and I was just like, "What is your guys' day like tomorrow?" And he's like, "Oh, we got to be at the rink by 9:45 for some pictures and stuff like that." I was like, "Well, how early do you guys get up?" And he was like, "Ah, get up whenever you need me to get up." I was like, "Well, if you guys aren't doing anything, would you mind surprising my Bible study with it?" And so they
Nice.
were gracious enough to come by, and it was 8 a.m. and we just got all the guys in Bible study got to see it. None of them, except the guy who runs it, knew it was coming, and so it was super sweet and fun. And then yeah, at the parade is actually when Charlie got to drink Gatorade out of the cup. It was just we were in the last bus, me, Stahl, Martinook, Aho, and Hall, and we were just hanging out up there waiting for it to kind of get rolling. And I think Jordo might have poured some Gatorade in it and let his kids drink out of it, and Marty's kids drink out of it. So I grabbed Charlie, and he was pumped to drink out of it. So one of those things that we got a good picture of him drinking out of it, and so one of those things that he'll be able to look back on in 10 years and just be like, "Oh, I drank Gatorade out of the cup when I was 3 years old," and stuff. Yeah, he'll enjoy that one.
And then maybe you can't give us an actual date because it would create too much chaos. I don't know. But I remember you gave a shout out to Prime Barbecue in the Raleigh area. You gave a shout out to Two Roosters Ice Cream, which even has a Slavin Sundae on the menu, which is pretty cool. Is it going to work out that way? We've seen it like in Finland with Aho. We saw it at Freddie Anderson's wedding or whatever that was. We've
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
it
it's
all over the world. What's your situation?
it's making its way around the team. I'll get my day sometime in August, and yeah, I got some good plans for it. Probably won't release all those plans, but it's going to be a fun day. A lot of friends, a lot of family. I'll definitely figure out a way to eat a two rooster Slavin Sunday out of that one, and it'll be the one of the best Sundays I've ever had.
I don't know if you heard this number, Jacob, but there were almost 200,000 people at that parade. In the history of the state of North Carolina, there are only one or two other events, not just sports, but for any reason that many people collected in the same place at the same time. So we, of course, asked Rod Brind'Amour about that, and he said he's rarely speechless, but he was speechless when he saw that. What were your recollections once you realized, hey, this is kind of cool, which I'm sure you expected, but it just seemed to go next level beyond whatever
Yeah,
your original guess might have been.
yeah, it was. I remember I feel like leading into it, they were all saying, "Oh, there might be 100,000 people there." And I was like, "Dang, that's a lot of people." And then we get there, and we all kind of looked at each other like, "This is insane. Way more than 100,000 people." We were the last bus, and so as we come through down the parade route, everyone kind of fills in the street and starts walking towards us and like following the bus. And when you see that wave just kind of collect in the back and then start following, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was so cool. You got people filling up the side of parking garages all the way to the top, lining the rooftops of buildings, even just any spare window along the route that people could kind of peek out, and it was packed. And so I think that was one of the cooler experiences I probably had in my life outside of obviously like winning the cup, and the medal and other things as well can be thrown into that. But that one was really cool, and just the way the city showed up and the passion that they have. And you talk about the community that we have here in Raleigh, like that's what it's about right there, is the people here that showed up.
Jaccob Slavin of the Carolina Hurricanes is our guest here on the North Carolina Sports Network. He is our 2026 Athlete of the Year, as voted by the sports fans of the great state of North Carolina a little bit earlier this summer. You enjoy talking about your faith, and I remember you describing, it must be an unusual, maybe hard to comprehend aspect of your amazing story that you got hurt at the beginning of this season. And I remember you saying you leaned into your faith even as an incredibly faithful person. whether it was playing in front of an empty arena, half empty in 2015 as a rookie, or whatever human feelings you had not getting to play the game that you love because of your physical injury. Share what you're willing to share about how you have leaned into your faith at low times, because man, it certainly has led to a lot of great times for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just start off by saying like faith is the most important thing to my relationship with Jesus is what gives me joy in life, is what gives me hope in life. And so I take that into every aspect of my life, whether it's loving my wife well, loving my kids well, loving the game of hockey well. Like it's that's where my source of joy comes from. And so earlier this year when I was battling those injuries, my joy was never taken from me. Obviously, I would have loved been out there battling with the guys, playing the game of hockey. But even through the time of injury, there's still joy that I had. And not, I wouldn't even say confusion would be the right word, because even in the whole process, my wife can attest to this. I was just like, all right, that's just part of it. Like God's got his plan through all of this. I don't know what it's going to be. And I think there's probably times I told her, I was like, maybe he's just preparing me for, to be able to play in the Olympics and have a long playoff run. And then that's what happened. And so it was a really weird injury that kept me out for it too. It was just such a unique one that our trainer said he's never even seen before. And so it was really strange. And then I come back for 3 games and then I hurt my shoulder and then I'm out for another 2.5, 3 weeks. I'm just like, what the heck is going on? But even in that, I think maybe it was that injury helped my knee heal all the way to where if I had tried to come back when I did, maybe deep down it wasn't ready when I felt ready. I don't know. And so I just kind of go through the whole process. I'm just like, man, like God's kind to even give me the opportunity to play in the NHL, let alone play in the Olympics, let alone win the Olympics and then win the Stanley Cup. It's just, I look at it and I just thank God for his kindness in it all. And because even if we didn't win the gold medal or didn't win the Stanley Cup, I'd still have joy. I'd still have that relationship with Jesus to turn to and to look to as my source of joy, my source of hope. And so I can just sit back at it all and just be grateful for the opportunity and just really, really thankful for God's kindness in it all.
You've been an NHL All-Star. You're an Stanley Cup champion. You've won the Lady Byng Trophy, I remember, at least twice. Is it like a corny question for me to ask? Does your faith contribute to you winning an award that, for those who don't know, the Lady Byng goes to, you have to be a high-level player, but you have to do it they call it in a sportsmanship-like way, a gentlemanly type way. Is it appropriate to connect those things about the way you play hockey being a reflection of your faith?
I would say 1,000%. I
Okay.
would say that is the reason I play the way I play. I mean, also, I think growing up, I was never the most physical player. So when it comes to the physicality of the game, like I'll hit people every once in a while, but it's not like I'm going out there and trying to hit people all the time. But so I think it mixes well with my style of play. But then, yeah, I want to go out there. I want to glorify God in the way that I play, in the way that I speak to the refs, to other players, to whatever it is. And I want to glorify him in the way my heart is on the ice, my heart posture before him. But I also want to let my play be a reflection of my relationship with Jesus. And so, yeah, I would 1,000% attribute those awards to my relationship with Christ and just wanting to be out there and play the game with integrity, play the game with character, play the game with humility. And I think all of that kind of encompasses what it means to play the game with high sportsmanlike conduct and also excellence as well.
Shout out to the kids for behaving well during our conversation. I'm going to get you out of here with a couple of quick things. I'm a season ticket holder to the Canes back even before you joined the team. So I've seen the lows and the highs. More importantly, you've had a front row seat for the lows and the highs. So I want to ask you about two people. When Rod Brind'Amour was hired as the head coach, the Canes, you weren't a part of all these teams, but the Canes had missed the playoffs 9 years in a row. It was one of the longest droughts in the history of the NHL for any single franchise. Now, of course, you guys have made the playoffs 8 years in a row, multiple Eastern Conference finals, and then, of course, the cherry on top being the Stanley Cup champions. How do you put into a short number of words how Rod Brind'Amour, being the fork in the road, contributed so heavily to this massive change in culture from consistent failure to consistent success?
Yeah, it just speaks volumes to who he is as a person. I mean, if you look at him, I feel like the first word you think of is compete. But there's so much more to him than just his work ethic. Obviously, you see the work he puts into the gym still. You see the work he puts in with his son, coaching Brooksy's baseball team, coaching or helping out with his hockey team on any night off that he can. And so the work ethic is there, but then also just the care that he has for everybody around him, the respect that he has for everybody around him. I mean, I saw him as an assistant coach for my first 3 years in the league, and even just the way, even if he probably didn't agree with how things were ran, he respected who was in charge and never tries to step on any toes. But obviously, there's a way that he wants things to be done, and we all know what he expects, and he expects greatness and the best out of us, but he still just wants everybody to be able to look in the mirror after the game and is just like, all right, you can live with yourself after that. And so the way that he turned the culture around is it is hard to describe because as soon as he got in control, everything changed. And I think that's just how he makes those around him better. And obviously, for the betterment of this whole organization, there's a good reason why he's the boss man behind the bench.
I asked Rod about similarities between Rod Brind'Amour, the player in 2006, and the other guy that I'm about to ask you about, Jordan Staal, the player in 2026. Mid to late 30s, team captain, super leader, face-off guy, kills penalties, work ethic to the ceiling, right? Universal respect of not only his teammates, but usually the opponents as well. And then this offensive explosion for Rod in 06 and Jordo in 2026 from guys who, as many things as they're great at, that wasn't the number one thing they were known for. And yet, Jordo's the MVP winner, and Rod was the leading scorer for the playoffs in 2006. Rod wanted no part of those analogies, right? But my guess is you're going to describe Jordan Staal with some of the same language that you just used to describe Rod Brind'Amour as your head coach.
Yeah, 1,000% I would. I mean, Jordo's been there my whole career. I remember being a 21-year-old. Jordo would have been 27 my rookie year, and just looking at him and thinking, man, that guy's really old. Like he's mature. I mean, he had been in the league for 9 years at that point, and so like he had been there, done that, and all of it. And so, but I mean, have him as my leader for the past 11 years, I couldn't think of a better captain, a better friend, a better person to do it alongside with. And so, yeah, I would use the same language to describe Jordo as I do Rod, with just the compete effort, the care, the willingness to put in the hard work to get the job done. I mean, I've seen that guy work out in the weight room. I've seen Jordo work out in on the ice, even after practice, still just working on the little intangibles of his game. And the humility for him to look at some of the young guys on our team, just like, man, how do you do that shot or whatever it is? Like he wants to win, he wants to compete, and he cares about all those people around him. And so for him to be able to have the playoffs that he did as our captain, as my friend, and it's just one of those things. I couldn't be happier for him, and I'm thankful that it was him that it happened to, and because you couldn't think of any better person to have that with.
Last thing, Rod and I have Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina in common. He has some relatives down there. I have a lot of friends down there. And he liked my analogy of describing the Canes as waves against the beach with your consistency of play. Your coach likes to say, don't take your foot off the pedal. Don't take a breath, right? What's going to set us apart as a team is our consistency and just that relentlessness. What do you think of the waves against the beach analogy to describe at least one of the elements that has allowed the Carolina Hurricanes to become this consistent winner and now this Stanley Cup champion?
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. I mean, it's just waves keep coming. And so definitely like that analogy a lot. Definitely love Tower 7 down there in Wrightsville.
Nice.
About to be at. But no, the Canes, the way that's just everyone, no one enjoys playing against us because it's hard. And we just, like Roddy always talks about, is the stress game. We try to keep that stress on, and finally it paid off.
He said the only team that has a better playoff record than you guys in the modern format was the Gretzky team in the late 1980s. And he said, hey, by the way, those guys had 6 or 7 Hall of Fame players. So Rod's argument is that you guys define team, not that you don't have great talent.
Yeah.
but maybe even define team better than some of those star-studded teams that have also won Stanley Cup in other years.
Yeah, the way they built our team. I mean, the on-ice capabilities of our team, unbelievable. We got some guys with extreme talent,
Sure.
extreme high-end skill, and the way they think and play the games, unbelievable. But I think what makes our team so special is our locker room and the way guys are off the ice and the way that we all care for each other. I mean, just all the good teams you hear the same things about, but a lot of times when people come into our locker room, they say they've never been in a locker room like that, in the sense of brotherhood and care for each other, and there's no cliques. Everyone enjoys being around each other, and so the respect that we have for each other, the love that we have for each other is top notch.
Jaccob Slavin, I know you are not about individual glory, so I appreciate you allowing us to pick your brain and get to know you a little bit better as we do celebrate you as the 2026 Athlete of the Year. Whole lot of great candidates all over the place. So you had State fans, Carolina fans, Duke fans, Panthers fans, of course, Caniacs, all voting for you. So it's just one little piece of your puzzle, but congratulations and thank you for this time on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate being here. Love being a Cane. Love this state, this city. It's great. So thank you.
Moving isn't just about boxes. It's about trust. Since 1997, Excel Moving and Storage has been one of North Carolina's most respected relocation companies. They handle residential and commercial moves, local, long distance, and international, and operate secure, climate-controlled storage facilities in Raleigh and Greensboro. From fine art and pianos to automobiles and wine collections, Excel's trained teams handle the moves that matter most. Learn more at excelms.com. Excel Moving and Storage. More than a move, a professional relocation.
Welcome back to the Pineys, the North Carolina Sports Awards, presented by McConnell Golf. I am Mike Waddell, along with David Glenn. And DG, it's time now to talk about our Coach of the Year. This category presented by Organized for Success. And it goes to the leader who built belief, accountability, and a team ready for the biggest moments. DG, who made the short list here for this category, Coach of the Year?
This was a shorter list. You had, of course, Rod Brind'Amour of the Carolina Hurricanes. You had Dave Canales of the Carolina Panthers, Manny Diaz of Duke football, Scott Forbes of UNC baseball, Mark Hubbard of NC State men's soccer, Kara Lawson of Duke women's basketball, John Shire of Duke men's basketball, and Coach Lori Hennis of NC State women's cross country, which is a dynasty in its own right. So not as many finalists in Coach of the Year. And I do have to point out that our Pineys rules do not allow the Team of the Year and the Coach of the Year to represent the same group. Otherwise, the voting just rewards the same people every year. So we try to separate the two. And when I elaborate on what those various coaches did, I think folks will understand why we had to separate the two awards.
So let's go ahead and get through this deep category. You say it's not that deep, but we have a lot of great coaches in here and some folks who have some pretty similar stories about how they've gotten to be where they are, bringing teams literally back from being non-existent to being champions.
Yeah, well, for example, when you win a national championship, often in our annual voting here at the Pineys, that coach is going to be on that list. So, for example, NC State won the national championship in women's cross country. That is a dynasty, so that coach is on this list. NC State men's soccer was the runner-up, and in just the second year with the program, Coach Mark Hubbard got them that far. They did almost unprecedented things in NC State men's soccer, so Coach Hubbard was a finalist. Kara Lawson, Duke women's basketball, ACC regular season title, ACC tournament champion, #2 NCAA tournament seed, and an Elite Eight participant. John Shire, similar resume, Duke men's basketball, ACC regular season title, ACC tournament title, #1 NCAA tournament seed, and an Elite Eight participant as well. Scott Forbes, remember, took UNC baseball not only to the College World Series, he took the Tar Heels to the final series in Omaha. So the Heels were runner-up. That made him a finalist. Dave Canales got the Carolina Panthers. He's only a second-year head coach at that time of the Panthers, led that franchise to its first playoff appearance in the NFL since 2017. So that got him a lot of votes. But you know what happened eventually. Manny Diaz led Duke to its first outright ACC football title since 1962, and its first title of any kind since 1989, when a guy named Steve Spurrier led the Blue Devils to a co-championship in the ACC prior to the creation of the ACC football championship game. So Rod Brind'Amour obviously was a finalist for very obvious reasons. Rod Brind'Amour may pop up a little later in the show, if you know what I'm saying. But Manny Diaz of Duke, when you lead a team to its first conference championship in a sport that the Devils had not won an outright title since 1962, even before you and I were born, you're going to get a lot of votes. And in the end, because Rod Brind'Amour is going to be represented in a different category this year, hard to argue with the Stanley Cup title, of course, Manny Diaz was our 2026 North Carolina Sports Network Coach of the Year. Sports fans across the state, not just Duke fans, vote in 5 categories, okay? We have a sports moment of the year, a sports event of the year, a team of the year, a coach of the year, and an athlete of the year, all right? Rod Brind'Amour and the Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup. He chose to accept the Team of the Year award on behalf of the Canes for obvious reasons. I know that if we gave you the option, you would have accepted the Team of the Year award as well. You don't have that option. I'm never allowed to tell Manny Diaz what to do, but by default, you are here to accept the State of North Carolina Coach of the Year honor for 2025-26, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. And in the spirit of Rob, what I'll say is I'll accept it as a Staff of the Year, right? Going all the way up, we won an ACC championship because of the vision of our president, Vincent Price, and how important football is to him at Duke, which, as you know, wasn't always the case. Nina King, our athletic director, our fundraisers and our donors, right? They give us a chance to have a roster that can compete. And then a coaching staff that, does the most of the work and helps prepare our guys all the way down. Our strength coach, David Feely, we think is the best. So it's fun for me to try to attract the right people. It's fun to let Duke be Duke and let Duke attract the right people. And the award is, I think it shows what alignment truly does.
You've been in this state long enough to know that Duke fans alone don't have enough votes to make you the Coach of the Year. So I hope it makes you feel good. There had to be some Carolina fans, some State fans, some Wake fans, some ECU fans, and others in there. I just wanted you to know that part. But this may be a geeky media question. Do you see any commonalities between what the Canes just did and what the Blue Devils just did? Because part of your story is first outright ACC football title since 1962. First win at Clemson since 1980. Coach, even I wasn't born in 1962, right? I think one of the reasons you got so many votes is that even schools that might not like the Blue Devils or fans recognize the unusual, extreme nature of those accomplishments. So with that background, the culture word gets thrown around a lot, but we had a front row seat for both your celebration and the Canes. Do you see any overlap? As Rod, by the way, sends his congratulations to you, as I know you do to him. I've seen you at those games.
I think there's always an overlap. I think all championship teams have some overlap, and the videos the Hurricanes have put out of their post-game locker room. What always stood out to me is how the players are always giving credit to their teammates, right? And what we always say is when you celebrate the successes of others as hard as you celebrate your own, if not harder, then you really know that you have a team. And I know to come as close as they had the 2 previous years, there'll be a question of belief. Like, do we really, really believe we can do a thing? And, to win 16 games in the Stanley Cup Finals is so difficult, right? I was at Game 1 of the Cup Finals, and the atmosphere unmatched, but then to lose, right? And then to be behind in Game 2, there's that moment where the human mind is going to say, this may not be us. We may be going to Vegas down 0-2, and to turn that game around. I will tell you that third period is one of the most extraordinary sporting events I have ever witnessed in my life. To turn that around, it takes more than skill. And like I said, it really takes belief and to conquer the mind, because the mind is always going to try to throw doubt in there. And so that's a credit to their staff and to their leadership.
With that in mind, I'm going to read your All-ACC players just so that they get their names associated with this honor. But I want to ask you about who and what went into rebounding from a 1-2 start for the Blue Devils, or being 5-5 in mid-November and still winning an ACC championship. Darian Mensah, Nate Shepard, Cooper Barkate, Brian Parker on the OL, Justin Pickett, Jeremiah Hazley, Chandler Rivers, Samir Hagans as a specialist, Aaron Hall, Vincent Anthony, Wesley Williams. I know there are other great players, but those guys' names will be in the record books forever. Leadership matters, whether from the coaching staff or the players in the locker room. That was not an easy journey to 9 wins in the ACC title and a bowl victory.
Well, a couple of things stand out. One, a lot of the names you mentioned were at Duke before Elko even got there. So they knew the lean years, and so they had seen the turnaround. They were personally invested to really take the program to a better place, way better than what they found it. 2, and there's 2 moments I'll talk about, and again, similar to the Hurricanes in Game 2. First was, we're 1-2, and we eventually stayed at home, and we're down 20-7 in the first half, and we can't slow them down to save our life. And again, there's that moment of, do you have a crisis in belief? And we're able to score right before halftime. That really turned the things around. We're able to come back and win that game. We got on a little bit of streak. We go to beat Clemson. Things are going well. We come home. We have a chance to beat Virginia to really take a stronghold in the race to get to Charlotte, and we get obliterated, play the worst game of the year, full credit to Virginia. And that same thing, the turnaround to go to Chapel Hill and beat those guys shows you the mental toughness and resilience that any championship team has to have.
I was able to ask you a question at the big ballroom at 2025 ACC kickoff, and my question was about strength and conditioning, as off the beaten trail as that topic can be sometimes. Let's revisit David Feely and the culture of that part of your program, because that had a lot to do with 9 wins and comeback victories and perseverance through adversity.
And it's so important because so when I took over, I wouldn't have come if I couldn't keep David Feely. He's so vital to our success. All the talk in 24, Riley Leonard left, Denise Peoples left, Jordan Waters went to State, Brandon Johnson went to Oregon. The concept was Feely. Why did we win? We won because of how we work in the offseason with that man, right? Got us into 25. I came here this time last year. I said this is the strongest, fastest Duke team since he's been there. Now the disruption. Who left Duke this year, right? How is it going to happen? And the fact that Feely never changes the standard in the weight room, whether we win, whether we lose, the work is the work, and it's right or it's wrong. And it reminds our players, it gives them proof. And guess what? We're actually stronger than last year's team, and we're actually much, much faster than last year's team. And that gives our players the evidence, other than saying, well, we're going to give the old college try. They actually see the fruits of their labor.
Manny Diaz is our 2025-26 Coach of the Year. For the record, Coach Dave Canales got the Carolina Panthers to their first playoff bid since 2017. He got a lot of votes. Scott Forbes of Carolina took the Heels to the College World Series. They were runner-up there. He got a lot of votes. But I did want you to know John Shire and Kara Lawson also got a load of votes. They're ACC champions as well. So somehow Duke University has all the planets aligning at the same time.
And I'd throw in what Jake did at Wake Forest last year as unbelievable as well. I think he deserves a lot of credit. It's very similar to when we came into Duke in year 1 with all the players that they left. And so that's the great thing about our league. I've got more respect for Dave, obviously Bill at Chapel Hill. I mean, we've got some outstanding coaches in this league and in this state. And I think it's a great treat. I don't know if it's ever been better for the Big Four schools as it is right now. And it's so competitive, right? Someone's got to lose. And we take those games extraordinarily seriously because of it.
I've interviewed Rod Brind'Amour like 100 times over 25 years, and the Pineys Award that he received was one of the only times that he allowed me to reflect back. I know you are a turn-the-page guy. Let's look at the next thing instead of the last thing. So I genuinely appreciate you carving out some time to accept from our viewers and followers and listeners and readers the 2025-26 North Carolina Sports Network Coach of the Year Award, Manny Diaz.
Well, thank you, and thank you to everyone that voted.
In college sports, the teams that win aren't always the most talented. They're the most organized. They study the film, they build the game plan, and they execute with clarity and purpose. Your life works the same way. At Organize for Success, productivity expert Emily Parks helps busy leaders create championship-level systems for work, family, side projects, and everything in between. For more than a decade, she's coached clients to prioritize what matters most and eliminate the chaos that slows them down. If you're ready to run your life with the same precision as a top program, visit organizeforsuccess.com and set up your complimentary call. Organize for Success. Win the day.
Welcome back into the Pineys here on NCSN, the North Carolina Sports Network. This year's show is presented by our good friends at McConnell Golf. David Glenn Team of the Year is presented this year by a new partner of us here on the North Carolina Sports Network, Amedio's Italian Restaurant, a proud North Carolina tradition. Really nothing like it anywhere in the state, and it's all right there for the Wolfpack faithful. David, a lot of great teams in the Bold North State over the past 12 months, and the field was strong, but who rose to the top at the end of the campaign for Team of the Year?
Well, I'll elaborate on these in a minute, but just to give you the quick overview, almost every finalist, meaning the top vote getters from our subscribers and listeners and viewers and readers, almost every finalist came from college sports. So Wake Forest was represented, NC State was represented, UNC was represented, Duke was represented, High Point University was represented, and only one pro team was represented among the finalists, and that was, as you might guess, the Carolina Hurricanes of the National Hockey League. So folks may be already ready and able to guess correctly who won this category given the various accomplishments. But I would love an opportunity, if we have time, to elaborate just a little bit on those great achievements at the college level.
Let's go ahead and do it right here. No time like the present. Go ahead and give us the full DG treatment.
Yeah, I mean, we have an obvious champion to celebrate with this category. And as Rod Brind'Amour himself ends up talking to us about, if you win the Stanley Cup, you would expect to win Team of the Year, right? But in some years, Mike, you know, we don't always have a national champion in pro sports or college sports. Wake Forest this year in men's tennis was both the ACC champion again and made the Final Four. Remember, Wake was a part of the Pineys, that same program, same coach a year ago here on the Pineys. NC State, I mentioned in a previous segment, won the national championship in women's cross country and made the NCAA championship game in men's soccer. That's a program that has only one ACC title, and that was way back in 1990. So taking NC State men's soccer all the way to the national title game is an amazing achievement. So the Wolfpack, like the Demon Deacons, represented among our Team of the Year finalists. At UNC, College World Series, that's only 8 teams, and runner-up means you were one of the last 2 standing. Not a title, not a trophy, not a crown, but an incredible achievement worth celebrating. UNC women's lacrosse feels like they're there every year. Jenny Levy has been a winner on a previous edition of the Pineys. The women's lax team for the Tar Heels was both ACC champion and NCAA tournament runner-up this year. I mentioned High Point. The Panthers of High Point are not often in these awards, but that men's basketball team went 31-5. We had Flynn Clayman on the David Glenn Show as we celebrated March Madness here on the North Carolina Sports Network, one of our favorite topics. The Panthers were the Big South champion again, 31 wins under, remember, what was then a rookie head coach, Flynn Clayman. And the Panthers posted the first NCAA tournament victory in their history as a Division I program. In another year, that might have won Team of the Year because of the unusual nature of those accomplishments, especially under a first-year coach, especially at a program that, you know, transitioned from a lower level just about a quarter century or so ago. And now not only have they made 2 straight NCAA tournaments, they actually won a game this time, which is a fantastic accomplishment, obviously. At Duke, women's basketball and men's basketball were fantastic. You win the ACC regular season in both cases. You win the ACC tournament in both cases. You're very high March Madness seeds in both cases, and you make the Elite Eight in both cases. So those 2 programs have been on a roll. Again, not a national championship, but fantastic accomplishments. And then we talked to Manny Diaz not long ago. His 2025 Duke football team, ACC champion, first ACC title since 1989 in the shared context, since 1962 in the outright context. All of those were alongside the Carolina Hurricanes in our Team of the Year voting. But there was only one champion. I mean, when you win a Super Bowl or an NBA title, or someday maybe we'll have a Major League Baseball franchise here in North Carolina and somebody will win the World Series, And obviously on the football side, maybe someday we'll have a college football playoff champion from the bold North State, or another College World Series winner. One of the biggest sports, men's or women's basketball, when you have a champion in either one of the big four on the pro side or the big four on the college side, unless there's two teams that do it in the same year, it's really a no-brainer in the eyes of most voters. And that's why your 2026 Carolina Hurricanes got the most votes for Team of the Year. And we have a very special guest joining us to accept that honor on behalf of the entire 2026 Hurricanes.
So you're saying that Rod the Bod was kind of a lock for this award?
Well, as I get into with my conversation with Rod, I knew, Mike, if Rod Brind'Amour was both the leading vote getter for Coach of the Year and the Canes were the leading vote getter for Team of the Year, and I mentioned briefly earlier on our Pineys that we don't allow the same team to be represented in both. Otherwise, every year it's just this, you have the coach and the team winning from the same school or the same franchise. So we break it up. And knowing Rod Brind'Amour for 25 years in my case, I knew he was going to say, DG, if I have a choice, let me represent my whole group and accept the Team of the Year honor. He was happy to defer the Coach of the Year honor, which, ended up going to Manny Diaz, a guy who was at Hurricanes games, rooting for the Canes and probably sounding the siren along the way as some other coaches did. So, Rod the Bod, we've known him a long time. He joins us in all sorts of contexts on the David Glenn Show and our other various platforms. But what an honor for us to have, fresh off a Stanley Cup championship, this guy accepting this honor on behalf of his entire crew.
Well, it's hard to explain. I mean, I didn't expect that to happen, but you just realize, so much hard work has gone into this, and then by everybody. And I mean, I've watched these guys, and I talk about my players, but I've watched them just grind it out and day in, day out for a lot of them for 8 years and more than that. And so just to see it finally come through, and these guys get the reward that I feel like they've deserved, a lot longer, a lot quicker than this. I didn't, you never know when it's going to happen, if it is, but there's not more of a deserving group. And I think that's what I was just so appreciative of and grateful for. And that's kind of the emotions that you're feeling like, man, these guys are going to get it. And, I've had it before, like you mentioned, in 2006. So I knew what it was going to feel like for those guys. And it was just so happy that they were able to get it, and now they're living it, and you can't take it away. They'll never get, no one can take that away from them. They've earned that right. And so that was kind of long answer to your question, but that's kind of what kind of floods through you here when you finally realize it's going to happen.
It's funny, in my 25 or so years knowing you, I recall a time where you didn't love speaking. You didn't love doing interviews. I mean, you're always a lot of fun, but it's not like it wasn't a central part of your personality. So I laughed at the parade where you got to say, man, I'm rarely speechless, but I'm speechless this time. You probably have heard this little fact by now. That gathering of almost 200,000 people, Rod, was not only one of the largest in sports history in North Carolina, it was one of the largest in any context in the history of a state that is like hundreds of years old. What do you remember seeing that day, and what made you overwhelmed by the moment as you celebrated not only with your guys, but with the Caniacs?
Well, again, tough to put into words unless you were there. I'd been through one in 2006, so I was kind of in my head going, okay, I know what I'm going to expect. It's going to be good turnout. It's going to be fun and, whatever. And then just from the start of it, you could just feel and sense there was something different about this. And number one, just, it was the takeaway from that was how happy everybody was. And so many people, I did not fathom there could be that many people down there, but everybody was like, I don't want to say, but behaved, and like they were stacked up on top of each other, but there was nobody like pushing to get in the front it was just, and everybody you saw was like loud the whole way. I mean, that whole parade, I couldn't believe it. It was just wave after wave of people and bringing people together like you never would have imagined. And that was the takeaway. I mean, there were people there dancing on the streets that I promise you would never talk to each other in a normal day, but they were just, hey, and I don't even know that some of them were even Hurricane fans. They were supporting a winner. People needed to have a win, you know. Everybody loves a winner, but you know how you live in the sports world, you're kind of in a bubble, and you don't, you know, all the stuff going on in the world and where we are as a country and everything goes, you know, but not that day, and not when they're cheering for us. And I think that's one of the things that I took away from it. And maybe it's only for a day, but we unified a lot of people, and that was very, very special to see. I'd love to figure out how to maintain that because that's what we need.
For those who haven't seen Rod's comments to the state legislature, look those up. He dives a little deeper into what he just said there about bringing people together at a time where we need it. All right, I'm going to give you one of my favorite sports quotes of all time because I think it's tied to your answer during the playoffs about the difference between you winning it all as a player in 06 and then winning it all. For those who haven't seen Rod's comments, it's a lot about how he was happy for his teammates in 06. He knew what everybody had to do to get there, but there was a personal part for him, right? He's thinking about the cup as he's lacing his skates at 5 years old and then 30 years later. But this time he's more of a dad, right? He's excited about this group experiencing something that he experienced. So here's my quote, Rod, from the Philadelphia Flyers organization of all places. A legendary coach named Freddie Shero, you may have heard this story, the night that they were about to clinch the cup in like the mid-70s when you and I are really young guys, he writes on the chalkboard, rather than a rah-rah speech, win tonight and we walk together forever. I love that quote. Of course, they did win that night. And you know the story. Those guys 50 years later are part of that community, still do stuff together, still are brothers, right? What do you think of that aspect of what you were trying to explain throughout the playoffs when you got that question? Because I get goosebumps thinking about that quote.
Well, I do too right now. It's funny. Like, so I was in the Flyer organization for a long time. So Freddie Shero, that quote that you talked about, they live that. And I got to see and witness it with what you talked about, how those guys were brothers forever. I mean, they were everywhere and tight. And I'm great friends with Bill Barber, and he looked after me, and he was one on those teams, the Flyer Legends, and we're still great friends. I mean, I named my son Brooks after his son because when I was there, they took such good care of me. I mean, and so you're 100% right. They are brotherhood forever. And here's the thing how lucky I am, if you think of it this way. I got my 2006 group, and I've got those brothers forever. And I mean, it's so special. And now, 20 years later, I got a whole new group.
Yeah.
And it's a different kind of. I wasn't out there with them, but I'm with them, and it's how fortunate is that to have. So I'm really, really grateful for that. But you hit it right on the head. I mean, these guys now, they're connected like the forever, and that's what's special about this sport and that Stanley Cup, because it's so hard to win until you do it. You don't really understand it, and then once you do, it comes crystal clear on what we're talking about here.
You know that you had been praised by many for your consistency over 8 seasons, right? Like, I'll never forget 9 straight losing seasons for the Canes, no playoffs. Before Tom Dundon takes over, hires you as the head coach, now 8 straight playoff appearances. So there was something to celebrate even before this obvious grand celebration. Do you believe that the margins are so thin, like among those 4 trips to the Eastern Conference Finals? Are you more a believer that margins can be so thin that maybe one of those other teams could have won it all? Or do you think either the talent factor, the goal scoring depth, or anything else about this group truly differentiated itself in the end?
Can it be both? Like, yeah. I do think like those teams we had a great chance to win it all, but there were things that went against us. And yeah, you're hitting the good teams and all that, but injuries. Like, I kept hearing about the teams we were playing, and I'm like, yep, you're 100% right. But go back to our teams, every playoff exit and go look who we're missing out of these games. It's really hard when you get down to the end. It's hard enough when you have a full lineup, but then you take out a couple players, and especially if they're, the so-called maybe even more important players, you don't really have a chance. And I felt like for 8 years or 7 years, that was always the case. And that was the frustrating part. We could never really see what this group could do. And then it all came together this year where I went through the lineup for what did we play, 19 games or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I missed one game up front. Nick Ehlers up front, he missed one game. And then the back end, Nikishin missed 2. That's it. Then, Freddie at the end, Freddie got nicked up. That's why he couldn't bounce out. So that's a big deal. You're number one goalie, but really Bus he was our number one goalie all year. So it wasn't like we were in big trouble there. We knew we had a great guy to throw in there. So that was really such a huge factor, is staying healthy. But I will say, now I'll go to the other part. We added some really key players. You talk about Nikolai Ehlers.
Yeah.
Just watch him play. That guy is a special player. And, not that we didn't have special players, but we didn't have that. We didn't have that little dynamic kind of player. And then the trade for Keandre Miller, your defense is what it's all about. You got to have, those guys dialed in, and adding him to the mix with what we already had. I think that pushed us, over the top, and can't understate the Stankoven and Hall and Blake, like their contribution, because they were on fire. And it might have been the best line in the whole playoffs, and that's not just being biased. It just back it up with the statistics and watching the eye test. They were something special. So everything kind of worked, and that's what has to happen to win it all.
Are you comfortable with the idea? Maybe even I know you like continuity. Why wouldn't you? It seems like you're kind of going to run it back with almost entirely the same cast.
Yeah. Well, listen, why wouldn't you? We've got obviously a great group, or we wouldn't be talking about it like this. So that's impressive. I know management's never satisfied with the roster we have. They're always looking to get better. And that's what I appreciate about Tom. He takes a lot of hits about stuff, but he's changed this franchise the day he walked in the door.
Yep.
And he did it because he was like, well, we're going to win. And I talked to him after we won. He was like, man, it took a long time. He's like, it took way longer than I thought it was going to. That was his first kind of, wasn't, hey, good job. It was like, it took long enough. That's the way he thinks, and he's already thinking the next day about how we're going to win again and what I got to do. And so, I know nothing's really happened yet on free agency with us, this summer, but I'm telling you, he was trying. I can just tell you that. And any name that you heard out there, he was trying to figure a way to get it. And that's what you got to love about an owner, right? That's doing that. And even though you mentioned earlier, we were way under on the cap this year, that wasn't on purpose. He was trying to make things happen, but they're not going to do something that doesn't make sense. And I think that's where maybe we got a little leg up, and Eric can talk sense into Tom, and they kind of bounce it back. We're in it for the long haul too, and we want to be good, every year that we can. So, but yeah, I think that Tom is probably if you had to boil it down to one thing, him coming in and saying, we're going to try to win this. I'm doing everything in my power to make it happen.
There's a great story from 20 years ago where after whatever other celebrating you did, you get back to your house and leave the Stanley Cup in your boys' bedroom or whatever, so that they wake up to the Stanley Cup, which is just awesome. What was your message to your guys here in 2026? I know at some point the cup rotates all over the world and the Europeans get it for a while, and there's those guys that have to follow the cup. But at some point you'll get it. Are you going to be low key with that? What was your message to the guys when they have their days?
Well, no, they got to enjoy it. This is something special, and you don't take it for granted. So it's actually, what are we today? I think the first players are getting it now. It got engraved after the draft and all that. So that took a little time. And then now they're actually starting the tour. It's going to happen. So the players, though, rightfully so, are going to get it, this month, and they go around, and then, it gets to the staff more toward the end of summer, which we're already going to be gearing up for next season at that point. So I think my days for it being too special and big event is probably not going to happen. I haven't even, to be honest, planned anything out. Low key is probably better for me at this point, but it's about those guys. They need to enjoy it. And they will. That's the one thing I do know. My guys can they know how to have a good time. So
They do.
Good for them.
There are viral videos from all over Glenwood Avenue and everything else. Like, is there a fatherly piece of advice where you say, I mean, I can hear it in your voice, you desperately want them to sort of freaking hang from the chandeliers for a little while. If that's what makes them happy, they've earned it. But I know you're a competitive guy. You're probably going to study at some point about how a short off season can complicate the next season. And when you go to the playoffs 8 straight years, that's a lot of wear and tear, et cetera. How are you viewing that? I don't want to take away from your joy.
Yeah,
but...
you just threw a downer in there. You just hit me with the reality wave that comes crashing in. They're in there. No, that's the real point. I mean, if you think about it, we ended and most guys were already a month into training for next year. And so you're behind the 8 ball and you got to give these guys as much rest now. It's really mental. We were in the grinder for such a long time. So it's and to your point, we've been playing flat hockey for 8 years, going long runs in play. There's been a toll that's been taken. So that's why you need to mentally enjoy. You need to, reap the rewards that they've earned. But I trust the guys enough that they understand now that they're going to want to do it again. Like, it's one thing to think about winning, but now that you won, to have this much fun and everything that's going along with it, that's the motivation now. It's kind of gone from motivation to inspiration. Now that you won it, you're inspired to win it more, and that's a more powerful thing. So I'm hoping that's kind of the angle we'll take this year. And are we going to have a little more bumps and bruises along the way than we did last year? Probably. But we've been through so much as a group that you mentioned earlier, that the continuity, this group's been through a lot. And so I think they can handle whatever comes our way.
It's funny, when Jordo got the retirement question after winning the Cup, he said, could this great achievement inspire him to retire? He's like, hell no, I want another one of those things. So that was
I love it. I think that is the key. I actually agree with that. It'd be one thing, it'd be another letdown. Be a lot of what do I got to do this for again? Now that to realize it actually could happen, man, I hope that inspires him to keep going, because with that guy, we need that guy around.
Last thing for Rod Brind'Amour joining us here on the North Carolina Sports Network. One of the cool themes for you over many, many years now refers back to something you mentioned earlier, whereas in college sports, you got this divisiveness and everybody's kind of going to their own pack, and the Canes can bring everybody together. Well, we do these annual awards. You've probably seen the ESPYs on ESPN. So we have these things called the Pineys, and it's just for the state of North Carolina. So we pick a coach of the year, a team of the year, an athlete of the year, an event of the year, and a sports moment of the year. Well, when the votes came in, the Canes could have won everything. I mean, the moment could have been raising the cup or you taking your shirt off again in the locker room. I'm just kidding. You were voted the coach of the year. Canes were voted the team of the year. Years ago, we decided you couldn't win all of them. We didn't want the votes to just give all 5 awards to one. So, knowing you, we took you out of the coach of the year running because I thought you'd rather
did you get something for winning the coach of the year?
Well, like dinner and a trip to the beach if you don't want to hang out with me.
Take me out of it. That's all right. I don't need that.
I don't have a trophy anywhere near, the Stanley Cup. So that's going to be a disappointment either way. But worthy people won in every category. And I can tell you, you're the team of the year. And I thought you'd like that more than coach of the year. And by the way, both Jordo and Jaccob Slavin, who had that, hasn't happened but one other time in American history, the gold medal and the Stanley Cup in the same year. So yes. I think Slavo or Jordo is going to be the athlete of the year, but we couldn't let the Canes win more than 2 categories. So anyway, here's your Piney. It's like it's an imaginary award.
Well, but I didn't win it, so don't give me any fake thing here.
Your team,
I love that. That's so much more important. That's what it's all about.
That's why we picked that for you, because you just would have shoved an individual award, in a closet somewhere.
How do you not? We win the Stanley Cup. How do you not be the team of the year? Is that not a slam dunk?
The cool thing is, if it wasn't, we're taking statewide votes, right?
Right.
And what happens is, state fans will stuff the ballot box in this category or that for a Wolfpack person. And Carolina fans will stuff the ballot box for a Carolina person. But the Canes, the combination of you guys being like everybody's team, and you can't argue with the Stanley Cup, that's how you guys were the runaway winner for Team of the Year.
Yeah, all right. That's a tough category if we're if that was a close call. I mean, we're never getting it if it's only the Stanley Cup or nothing.
This year, it was not a close call. There are some other years, that maybe nobody won the championship. You guys have finished high, even in years where you were like the Eastern Conference Finals. You're a Coach of the Year finalist every year. But again, I know how you feel about that Hall of Fame thing, and I thought it was cool that you said the honor doesn't mean as much as the opportunity to thank a lot of people that helped you along the way. So I look forward to that day. I won't ask you a question about it today. We know how you feel about it. But thanks for this extended visit, man. You have a special place in our hearts, and congratulations on another job well done.
All right, Dave. Thanks for having me, buddy. We'll see you around.
Hey, Wolfpack Nation. You already know that when we talk about the great traditions of NC State athletics, Amedio's Italian restaurant is right at the heart of it. Since 1963, it's been the go-to spot for generations of Pack fans. The walls tell the story, the food seals the deal, and every visit feels like part of the family. Whether it's pre-game pasta, post-game celebrations, or just a night out on Western Boulevard, Amedio's delivers every single time. Great people, great plates, and pure NC State pride. Stop by Amedio's, a true Wolfpack original.
Welcome back into the Pineys here on NCSN, the North Carolina Sports Network. This year's show presented by McConnell Golf. David Glenn, myself, Mike Waddell, going to talk about the event of the year. And this category is presented by one of the best places to get breakfast anywhere from Murphy to Wilmington. In this case, we're talking about the original Saltworks. And David, the competition that captured elite performance, community pride, and the character of North Carolina. There were a lot of great events here in the bold North State in 2025-26, but what rose to the top and earned the Piney?
Well, before I elaborate on these, I will say that this list of finalists was not as long. Only 4 cities were represented. Remember, just as the ESPYs celebrate national sports or occasionally international sports on a platform such as ESPN, we at the North Carolina Sports Network, of course, are celebrating North Carolina-based teams, North Carolina-based coaches and athletes and events and moments. So the event has to take place in North Carolina just to be eligible for our Event of the Year honor. The city of Charlotte had 2 representatives that I'll elaborate on in a second. Morehead City, North Carolina, was represented this year. Cary, near Raleigh, of course, was represented by 2 different events. And Greensboro was represented by a single event. So there were only 6 finalists this year, Mike. So it won't be too hard or too long for me to elaborate on those 6.
Well, give us the inside poop. What were the events that defined the past 12 months in sports here in North Carolina?
Well, you and I were at the first one. The 2026 ACC men's basketball tournament, of course, was held in Charlotte. We had an in-state team, Duke, beating UVA in the title game at the Spectrum Center. Cameron Boozer was the MVP. It was a great event, a well-run event, a high-profile event, and that's why it was one of our 6 finalists. I was on the field, freezing after midnight, I think it was, at the 2025 ACC football championship game, also in Charlotte. That one had Duke beating UVA. Same 2 schools, same one came out on top. It was the Blue Devils over the Cavaliers on the gridiron in overtime at Bank of America Stadium, as again an in-state team won the ACC title for the first time in a long time in Duke's context. But remember, Wake Forest in 2006 was the other most recent example of an in-state team winning the ACC football title. Feels like it happens all the time on the basketball side. Also, Cary, North Carolina was represented by 2 events. The 2025 NCAA men's soccer Final Four was in Cary. And I mentioned NC State, remember, was in that championship game. It was Washington over the Wolfpack in overtime in that title contest at Wake Med Soccer Park, which is a great venue. You can see the North Carolina Courage play in the NWSL there. There's a lot of other great events. Speaking of the 2026, it's called the Soccer Tournament, TST, in Cary. This is elite athletes, sometimes even entertainers, competing for $1 million prizes. And I mean one in the men's category, one in the women's category, one in the mixed category. 7-figure team prizes is how that event has grown right here in our backyard. That's also at Wake Med Soccer Park in that huge complex of fields. It is a growing event. It's a fantastic event. I encourage folks to get out there as it continues to grow. And then Greensboro was represented. The 2025 Wyndham Championship, I mentioned in a different category, a Wake Forest product, Cameron Young, won that PGA Tour event. We only have so many major golf events here in North Carolina. I say major, meaning an annual PGA Tour event. We actually occasionally get a major golf championship. Not often, but occasionally. But Cameron Young's performance right here in Greensboro, representing the Demon Deacons in his pro days, it tied the all-time tournament record with a 258 over those 4 rounds. So that made the Wyndham Championship, an event we host every year here in North Carolina, an even special version of its, more special than usual version of itself, given those localized details. So those were the other finalists, but the winner, Mike, this year came from, I guess technically off the coast of Morehead City, North Carolina. The 2026 Big Rock Blue Marlin tournament has become one of the biggest of its kind in the entire United States of America. There were nearly 300 boats competing this year in that event. Kind of like the Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup not too long ago. The Big Rock tournament was not too long ago. They competed this year, Mike, the anglers did, and we have a very special angler representing our Event of the Year honoree, the Big Rock tournament. This guest caught a 66-pound mahi-mahi and won for her crew almost $600,000. Yes, for catching a single fish. There was another boat at the same event that cashed in with more than $6 million in prize money. So just as I mentioned, the soccer tournament has grown here in our backyard as an innovative event that keeps growing and the prize money goes up every year. The Big Rock tournament, folks can do their own research. It has grown seemingly exponentially since it was created, more than a half century ago. But that number, almost 300 boats, almost $10 million in prize money this year. You got to go miles off the coast of Morehead City to catch these biggest fish. But we are thrilled to have someone we know well as our guest representing the Event of the Year, the 2026 Big Rock Blue Marlin Tournament in Morehead City, NC.
So let's go now to another on-location interview. It's DG and the Queen of Tides, Keaton Gilleece, with the Piney for Event of the Year, and it's presented by Bob Hubbard and the Original Saltworks.
Okay, so the 2026 Sports Event of the Year here on the Pineys, the North Carolina Sports Awards, is the Big Rock Blue Marlin Tournament, which is actually held in Morehead City, North Carolina. We're about 2 hours south of that in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. We're at King Neptune Restaurant. That's the cool logo. We're with Keaton Gilleece, who runs this great restaurant in Wrightsville Beach, but not because she is an entrepreneur or a mom or a wife or a daughter or a sister or any of those things. We're here because she caught a fish in the Big Rock tournament this year that drew a prize of more than $500,000. Keaton, before we dive into that, and thank you for joining us and being partners with us, tell us, where did you grow up and what do you remember about falling in love with fishing long before you knew such a big prize was even possible?
So I grew up here in Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach area, born and raised. Spent all my life until I was ready to go off to college, went to NC State. I was so ready to get out of here, left for 2 years, and then really realized what all I had here in Wrightsville Beach, how awesome of a town it was, So I came back and I opened some businesses, had some kids, and here I am. I really got into fishing probably around 10, 11, 12. And it was more of just a hobby here and there. My mom and stepdad moved to Florida. The fishing down there you didn't have to go out quite as far, so that was something that was a little bit more easily done. You were out in the stream and then back by lunchtime. And so we did that off and on, but I didn't really get into it very seriously until Jimmy and I got together. He was very big into fishing and still is. So probably for the past 10, 12 years, we love to fish all the tournaments, and we just really, really enjoy doing it.
That Jimmy reference was Jimmy Gilleece. He owns Jimmy's Bar next door. His lovely wife, Keaton, is with us here on the 2026 edition of the Pineys. All right, living at the coast, gradually getting more and more into fishing. I've read that the Big Rock tournament started before any of us were born, way back in the 1950s. Like the grand prize was $300 and some dollars, $300 and some dollars. And for the record, there was a boat this year that won more than $6 million at the same event. Yes. When do you first remember the Big Rock tournament a little north of here, like just hitting your radar as it gradually grew over time?
Probably again around 10, 11, 12, like when I started to get into fishing. It's just it's a big ordeal, really, for people that don't even fish, especially once the prize money got bigger and bigger and bigger, more boats got involved. And it was just something that you would keep track of as a kid, and it was fun to watch and see the big fish weighed in. But my husband and Jimmy and I started fishing it probably maybe 8, 10 years ago. He had fished it long before I did. Very regularly, almost every year. And so, yeah, I'd say past 10 years or so that we've fished it. And if we skipped a year or so, we definitely watched it and kept up with it.
There's a great photo of you with all of your crewmates, and it's 9 men.
Yes.
And you.
Yes.
And in the winning photo, you have a beautiful dress on. Of course, on the photo when they were weighing the fish in, you were in angler's gear.
Right.
What other sports did you play? Were there any other times where you were like the one girl on the field, now the one woman on the boat?
No, growing up I ran track, so that was a co-ed sport in high school, and I was really big into riding horses. Again, a little bit of a co-ed sport, predominantly more females, but nothing like this. When I'm out there fishing, I am typically with a crew of all guys.
As a fan, I've seen you go to a Carolina Hurricanes hockey game, Stanley Cup champions.
Yes.
Rod Brind'Amour, head coach of the Canes, and Jaccob Slavin, star defenseman, are among our other guests. So the name of Keaton Gilleece will always be next to those guys in the 2026 edition of the Pineys. Are you a sports fan in addition to being a sports participant?
Absolutely. I grew up in a sports household. My dad is a huge sports fan, so I kind of was, at a young age, forced to watch football, even though I really could have cared less. So with it being on all the time, I was kind of forced to be a sports fan. But as I got older, I continue to follow it. It's a big thing with our business and our bar. We have sports on all the time. We're known as a sports bar. So I enjoy following it now.
I know there are smaller tournaments, there are inland tournaments, and for the Big Rock, you got to go 60 miles offshore, and you are after the winning fish in a different category, for the record, was a 919-pound blue marlin, which shattered the all-time Big Rock record. In Keaton's victory, it was a 66-pound Mahi to win the dolphin category and that prize of almost $600,000. Prior to this, in any level of fishing, had you won large prizes, small prizes, or was your first one more than $500,000?
This was the very first one. And it's really funny with the amount of money that we spent over the years on entry fees, fuel, dockage, and that's just part of fishing the tournaments, and we enjoy fishing the tournament, so that's not really something we think of. But with that being said, winning, especially Big Rock, out of any tournament, was never on my radar at all. It was just, yes, it was a tournament, but it was more so just out another day fishing.
There's a very small percentage of boat captains that do this for a living. Like they can compete and make a living catching fish, right? Tell us about the 10 people on your boat, because I know it kind of came together late, but some of these folks are friends of yours. Taylor, the captain, you had been on his boat in other contexts. Just tell us about the rest of this team that brought home this prize.
So Taylor Pleasant is the captain and owner of the boat, and we typically fish Pirates Cove tournament with him. Pirates Cove tournament is a billfish tournament in Manio, North Carolina, and that's mid-August, and we've fished that with him every year for quite some years now. With Big Rock, we kind of stopped fishing it just because it's a very expensive tournament. It's become a really big tournament. With that being said, we enjoy Pirates Cove because it is a smaller, more intimate tournament. So about a week before Big Rock this year, Taylor reached out to my husband, Jimmy, and asked if we'd be interested in fishing Big Rock with him. And we kind of were on the fence and didn't know really what our work schedule was like, but we were like, yeah, you know what? We will buy in. So typically the way it works is you buy in shares to the tournament, and that way if money is won, then that's how that gets paid out. But we said we would buy in a share. Weren't really sure if we were going to actually be able to fish the tournament, but definitely wanted to buy in. So the tournament started on Monday, and that Sunday night before, Jimmy and I were sitting around the house talking, and I said, you know what? We don't have anything on the calendar tomorrow. Let's go fish. So the boat was docked in Moorhead, and we were still in Wilmington at the time. So we decided that we were going to leave Monday morning at 4 a.m. from Wilmington, drive up to Moorhead, jump on the boat, and fish the first day of Big Rock. So it was a very unorganized trip on our end, just because we didn't know if we were going to fish, if we weren't going to, so it was just really funny how it worked out. So we hopped on the boat about 6 a.m. We left the dock. I remember I took a picture of the sunrise that morning because it was just so beautiful on the way out. And I had posted it on social media. A couple hours go by. Well, we're on the boat with Starlink, so we have cell phone service, can call, text, email, all that. A few hours goes by. The tournament had already started. The lines were already in, and I had already caught the dolphin at this point. I looked down, and my sister's calling me. And she said, I didn't know you guys were fishing the tournament. I said, I had no idea we were either, but here we are, and I just caught a giant mahi. We're actually going to go to the scales and weigh it in. So she grabbed my kids, who are 8 and 10, along with her 6-month-old, hopped in the car from Wilmington and drove up to Moorhead to the weigh-in. And so my kids were there for the weigh-in of the mahi. They were able to see that. So it was really, really cool. Again, adding to the unorganization of this trip, it was just kind of chaos all thrown together, but it was really cool how everything turned out, and just this fish is unbelievable.
And to connect the dots here, Jimmy and Keaton are leaving 4 a.m. pitch black just to get to the tournament. That was the day, the same day that she caught the big mahi, and that one, of course, 5 or 6 days that had to stand up, right?
Yes. So every day the scales close at 7. The tournament's broadcasted on YouTube TV. So we're watching YouTube TV every day till 7, making sure that our mahi didn't get beat out. My mahi was 66.1 pounds, so if anybody had weighed a 66.2 or anything higher, my mahi would have gotten beat out with the winning prize. So every day till 7 p.m. we're watching YouTube, making sure that nobody weighed in a bigger fish. Well, Saturday was the last day of the tournament. Again, scales close at 7. And we actually fished the tournament that Saturday, and we got word from a couple other boat captains through the radio that there was 2 big mahi being brought to the scales weighed in. So at that point, we know that they've got to be of some substantial size to even come to the scales to weigh in. Everybody knows the winning fish at this point is 66 pounds. So it was about 6 o'clock that one of the 2 were brought to the scales weighed in. I was a nervous wreck. I didn't want to broadcast it on my phone. I didn't want to watch it. I sat on the back of the boat by myself. The TV was on in the salon of the boat, and all of the rest of the crew and family members were all inside watching it. And the first fish weighed in was, it was 61 pounds, I believe is what it was.
That's big too.
huge, very unexpected that it was that big, because all week everybody was like, there's no way there's going to be a bigger mahi than that. And, I mean, a 66-pound mahi is just, it's very unheard of in the Atlantic Ocean. So 61-pound fish weighed in. Crazy huge fish, but okay, we're safe. However, we still have one more fish that's being brought to the scales, and you don't have any idea. You know, we haven't seen pictures. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking. So I want to say it was probably 6:20, 6:30, almost 7 o'clock. The second one makes it to the scales, and when they bring it to the scales, it's a long, drawn-out process. The boat pulls in. They have to measure the fish. They got to look at the fish, and then they hook it to the scale and winch it up. I mean, it's just it's a very long process. So I couldn't watch any of this because you're just looking at the fish like, is it more than 66 pounds? How much does it weigh? And your mind starts playing tricks on you. So again, I did not watch this weigh-in. I sat on the back of the boat by myself. Everybody else was, again, watching the TV, and you could just hear a pin drop if it did in the salon, because everybody was just so quiet. And then all of a sudden I heard a bunch of cheering, hooting and hollering. So at that point I realized that we had won. The second fish that was weighed in was, I believe, I don't know the exact weight, but around 63 pounds. So a 61 pound and a 63 pound weighed in. The last day at 6:30 before scales closed at 7 was a little too close for comfort.
Given the ages of your children, I've always been amazed, like my kids at some point were not impressed that dad was on TV, not impressed that dad owns a business. I've seen you in several super mom capacities. Like, where did that, when they were able to show up for the weighing, like, are they impressed that mom runs a successful restaurant? Or are they more impressed that you're next to this 66-pound mahi?
I don't think they fully understand the capacity of the restaurant and businesses yet. They're still a little young to put them to work. But I think that at the weigh-in, they thought it was cool because, it's all roped off and crowds can only go but so far. And there was news channels and cameras and all that kind of stuff. So I think that they appreciated that a little bit more than they do the businesses right now. I think when they get older and start working, then they'll appreciate that.
What I know most about mahi is how good it tastes on a plate at King Neptune Restaurant in Wrightsville Beach. But I have read that they are aggressive. They can be acrobatic in the water. Oh, yeah. What do you recall about the fight to land this fish?
So I remember actually before it was ever hooked, we're all sitting talking on the back of the boat, and I remember looking out and seeing that mahi jump across the spread, probably 200 yards out. And I remember thinking like, wow, that's a really, really nice mahi. It's far back enough to where you can't really gauge exactly how big it is. But I remember thinking it was a very decent sized mahi. So it missed everything, came back around, we hooked it. And at this point, when the fish was hooked and I realized there was a fish on the line for somebody to catch, I was not thinking that I was getting a spot in the chair at all. I'm on a boat with 9 guys fishing big rock tournament with all this money involved. I never thought I would have had a chance. So one of the guys looked up at the captain, Taylor, and asked, can Keaton get on this? And he said, yeah. So I'd hopped in the chair and just started fighting the fish. And it definitely was a fight. Now, to my advantage, we're out there fishing for huge blue marlin. So we've got huge blue marlin tackle. So luckily it bit on this blue marlin tackle, and it definitely was a fight, but because of how big the tackle was, it made it a little bit easier. But we got it to the boat, or I got it to the boat once, and it took off. It got scared from getting close to the boat, and the gaff was out. So it did that a few times, took off a few times, and when it's running like that, you just kind of have to let it do its thing. And then once it stops, then that's when you really start cranking and reeling on it. So I did that for about 20 minutes, and it definitely was a fight, but I had no idea to the extent of what size fish this was until we got it in the deck of the boat. And I just remember looking down on the deck of the boat and just thinking, oh my gosh, this is the biggest mahi I've ever seen. I mean, just the head on it. Yeah. I mean, it looked prehistoric. It was just so big. It was a really cool experience.
We're with Keaton Gilleece. We're at King Neptune Restaurant in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. She was one of the big winners as an angler at this year's sports event of the year on the North Carolina Sports Awards. It was the Big Rock Tournament up in Morehead City. As we let you go, I also want to congratulate you. The 2026 40 Under 40 Award.
Thank you.
Among the honorees from the Greater Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. So it sounds like a big year all around for you and Jimmy and the restaurant and the bar and your fishing expertise and the kids and everything else. What do you want to say to folks who might not care as much about your fishing expertise, but maybe they haven't tried King Neptune, or maybe they've never visited Wrightsville Beach or seen live music at Jimmy's bar next door?
So here at King Neptune, we took over this restaurant in 2021. We did a complete remodel. King Neptune is the oldest running restaurant in New Hanover County. So we just wanted to keep the history of the King Neptune, bring in the local. So we have local seafood, local ingredients. That's just predominantly what we focus on. So we'd love to have you join us for dinner or brunch on Sunday or lunch. And then right next door, we have a bar that we've had for 12 years now, I think it is. Time flies, that's crazy. But we have live music every night, Monday through Sunday. We're open every day. Holidays we're open, so please come check us out.
Right over the bridge. Come on to Wrightsville Beach, make the left at Jimmy's, you see first, and then King Neptune next door. Keaton Gilleece, part of the 2026 Pineys and the 2026 North Carolina Sports Awards here on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Someplace
into the Pineys here on the North Carolina Sports Network. These are the North Carolina Sports Awards. They are voted on by our listeners and viewers here on YouTube, on our official website, ncsportsnetwork.com, where you get lots of great daily scoop from North Carolina's most trusted sports journalist, David Glenn, who joins me now right back here for our final Piney of the night. It is called Moment of the Year, presented by Jimmy's and King Neptune Restaurant down in Wrightsville Beach. And this one, it's the one moment, the instant that made North Carolina stop, collect their breath, and watch as history unfolded before their very eyes. And David, what moments made that very tough category cutoff here in the last 12 months in North Carolina?
Yeah, this is a tricky category because everybody can define moment however they like, right? Sometimes people will define a moment as getting the call that you're going into a Hall of Fame. Remember, UNC legend, Carolina Panthers legend, Julius Peppers got that call, and his call to the Pro Football Hall of Fame ended up being voted by our viewers and readers and followers and supporters as the moment of the year. So it can be a specific moment within an athletic contest, or some voters can just define it in a totally different way, as in that Julius Peppers Hall of Fame context. I'll give you the sports that made our list of finalists, Mike, and then I'll elaborate as we go into our fifth and final interview with this year's honorees. Motorsports made the final list this year. Football made it. Golf made it in two different contexts. Football actually made it in three different contexts. Soccer made the finals, golf made the finals, and basketball made the finals. So it was a nice variety. I think I have 8 finalists for Moment of the Year, and obviously the winner will be joining us here shortly, but I'll elaborate on a handful of those if you like.
Absolutely. I mean, is this a new event or is it something that really just is there like death and taxes every year?
Yeah, so before I get to the winner, for example, Dale Earnhardt Jr. got a lot of votes because in March of this year, he was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. That is a big moment for anybody, even when his playing days or driving days are over in that case. So that got a lot of votes. Dale Earnhardt Jr., obviously an incredibly popular figure here in the bold North State. Duke winning that rare ACC football title. Again, first of any kind since 1989, first outright since 1962. That happened in December of 2025, which is within our 12-month cycle here. That championship got a lot of votes. Didn't win this category, but obviously is well represented with Manny Diaz taking that Coach of the Year honor earlier. Cameron Young, I've mentioned him a few times. Wake Forest product winning the Wyndham Championship, the PGA Tour event held every year right here in our backyard in Greensboro. He had that record-tying score. That championship moment got a lot of votes as well. The Carolina Panthers were represented in two different categories. One, the legend Luke Kuechly was announced as a 2026 Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee. That announcement came back in February. So Julius won in this contest. Julius Peppers won for that moment a year ago. Luke Kuechly was a finalist but didn't win because of another vote getter that we'll elaborate on here shortly. Carolina Panthers did get their first playoff appearance since 2017, so some voted for that clinching moment in America's most popular sport, the NFL, as the moment of the year. And then this one also from the sport of golf, the PGA Tour announced it was in November of last year, so again, within our 12-month window. It's not often that we get an annual PGA Tour event, right? We've always had some version. It's not always been called the Wyndham Championship, but we've always had one event in Greensboro. We've always had one event in Charlotte. We have a Champions Tour event, right? We have an on the way to the PGA Tour event. We have a lot of golf, but for most of my lifetime, it's been the one in Charlotte, the one in Greensboro. The PGA Tour did announce last November that there's going to be a new event called the Biltmore Championship, and that is going to be Asheville, North Carolina's first PGA Tour event since 1942. So I was happy to see people nominate that for Moment of the Year because that is a very big deal. We are a great golf state as much as we are a great college basketball state and now a great hockey state and a lot of other things. But I was happy to see that get some attention. And then, on somewhat of a parallel line, Major League Soccer did grant Charlotte, North Carolina, the old Queen City, hosting rights for the MLS All-Star Game this year. So just as you and I are celebrating the recent Big Rock tournament, the recent Carolina Hurricanes Stanley Cup title, some of these event winners and top vote getters happened very recently. The MLS All-Star Game was just played. Now, the announcement that our state was going to get that event came last summer, so very early in our 12-month cycle. But another worthy vote getter. And last, certainly not least because it ended up winning, and this is the other definition of a moment, right? Those moments were mostly announcements. A couple of them were actual on-the-field moments, but this was an on-the-court moment. Among the things in sports that makes our state the most famous is the Duke-Carolina rivalry in men's basketball. And just as, Walter Davis of UNC had a legendary shot against the Blue Devils decades ago, and just as Austin Rivers of the Blue Devils had a legendary shot to beat Carolina more recently, Seth Trimble of the Tar Heels in 2026, meaning this past February, had the game-winning shot to beat Duke at the Smith Center in the final second of that matchup in Chapel Hill as those two legendary programs got together. Remember Caleb Love's three-pointer when Carolina beat Duke at the Final Four? I'm not sure you can top that in terms of big-time shots when the Blue Devils and the Tar Heels get together. But just as Austin Rivers' shot over Tyler Zeller to beat the Tar Heels in the Smith Center will live forever in the history of that rivalry, Seth Trimble got Tar Heel revenge on the Blue Devils with that stunning last-second three-pointer at the Smith Center right there in front of the Carolina bench back in February.
Well, it's time now to give out our Piney for Moment of the Year. It's presented by Jimmy's and King Neptune Restaurant in Wrightsville Beach. Here's DG.
Our next guest has joined us multiple times in other contexts, but this time we get to call him the winner of the North Carolina Sports Network's 2025-2026 Sports Moment of the Year honor. Our statewide viewers and listeners and readers and followers, not all of them Carolina fans, by the way, voted this young man's last-second game-winning three-pointer as UNC defeated Duke 71-68 back on February 7th at the Smith Center in Chapel Hill in one of America's most celebrated sports rivalries. Y'all voted that moment the number one sports moment of the past 12 months across all sports, college, pro, or otherwise, here in the great state of North Carolina. Seth Trimble, welcome back to the North Carolina Sports Network, and congratulations. How are you?
I'm super blessed just to be able to receive this. I'm very appreciative. I thank you guys. I thank all my Carolina fans, and I guess I thank all the Duke fans, too, who voted it, too. I mean, I'm glad that there's that mutual respect, and, you know, we can sit back and, you know, look at the moment in a good way. So I'm very appreciative of it.
Thanks for carving out some time to join us to celebrate this. How often would you guess that you have thought about that shot or had somebody ask you about that shot in these 5 months or so since that shot actually happened?
For sure. I mean, that's been my most frequently asked question. You know, like what went through your head? You know, like how did you just live in that moment? What did you do that night? You know, every NBA workout that I had, that question was asked. I mean, like every other athlete I talked to, the question's asked. So it's definitely the most frequently asked question. So I couldn't even tell you how many times it's been asked. But it's up there. It's up there in the too many. It's up there.
Well, I was wondering, in the list of things that maybe a Carolina fan recognizes you, or even just a bigger basketball fan, you're known for your blocked shots and your steals and your athletic plays and your dunks and for the Ben and Jerry's on Franklin Street and for work in the community representing the Tar Heels. What else is on that list along with the shot when people see Seth Trimble?
I think one of the things is just, you know, trying my best to be a fine young man, you know, on campus. When we go on the road, you know, every Carolina fan I see, I try and treat with the same respect. You know, I try and make them feel like they're part of that Carolina family. I try, you know, make them feel welcome. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. You know, obviously, my play on the court is going to speak for me. Obviously, I'm going to be known for what you just said, you know, breakaway dunks, being able to get stops, everything like that. But I think just having that character off the court has been one of the things that people have noticed most over the years.
We're going to peel the onion on this sports moment because it's being celebrated on, we call this the Pineys. ESPN has the ESPYs. Here in North Carolina, we have the Pineys. When
Yes, sir.
I look at that video, it looks like you found your spot right there in front of the Carolina bench at the Smith Center fairly early. Just to remind folks, game is tied at 68, less than 10 seconds remaining, Carolina ball. Derek Dixon has the ball above the three-point line, kind of on the far side of the court. Seth settles into his spot in front of the Carolina bench. Someone later said that the play was initially designed to go to Caleb Wilson or maybe even somebody else, but Derek Dixon drives down the left side of the lane. He runs out of room, kicks it across the court to you. What do you remember about the play that Coach Hubert Davis drew up in the huddle? And then what do you remember about how the play actually unfolded?
Yeah, well, Coach Davis and Coach Frederick came together and, you know, drew up an amazing play that wasn't really specified for anybody. Obviously, you know, we want to get the ball to our most efficient players first, which was either 1A Caleb, 1B Henry, or vice versa. Not, you know, I don't remember efficient-wise, but the play was to have options, and it was, you know, relying on Derek to make a play. We wanted to get that switch with Cameron Boozer guarding Derek, and we wanted Derek to be able to get downhill and make a read from there. You know, whether it was hitting the pocket, Caleb was supposed to roll, supposed to hit the pocket for him. Henry was popped, and I was opposite corner. Jaren was near corner, and Derek just ended up making the right play in that moment. So I think the really special thing, about that is how we all came together and we trusted each other. We knew anybody could make that play, and we knew all 5 guys on the court were going to make that right play. And that's what happened.
It's easy to forget this part, but after the video review, the game was not quite over yet after your big shot. So Duke still has, 4/10 of a second or whatever it was. There was an on-court celebration before the video review. Your teammates mob you. I looked at the video again. You're kind of like, maybe you saw a blur in your head, but you're sort of tackled as you're strutting across the court to the opposite sideline. And I think I read that somehow your own dad found you in the middle of that chaos. What do you remember about the first celebration before you had to kind of recalibrate and, finish the game for a fraction of a second?
Yeah. When I first hit that shot and that first celebration happened, it was one of those things where, like, I don't really know how to describe it, but life did not feel real. Like,
wow.
Literally, I hit the shot and I just blacked out. Like, every piece, every bit of emotion that you call happiness was in my body, that you call ecstatic, that you call excitement. Like, all that was in my body, and I literally just blacked out. Like, I didn't plan to do this. It just my body just did it, and then as soon as they mobbed me, I just blacked out. And the next thing you know, my dad had found me because a few months before, I just had surgery on my arm. My dad was very concerned. He was very excited. As soon as he saw me, he gave me a big hug. But as soon as he got me, he led me off the court because it was a little bit too much. And I was struggling to breathe a little bit. It got back in the court quick. So I'm glad he came and got me. I'm glad my teammates mobbed me because, like, the emotions that I felt in that moment were second to none.
That's super cool. I'm a dad myself. I have a son. I have a daughter. My daughter's actually close to your current age. So dad is both excited off the charts for obvious reasons, but he's kind of worried and protective of his son in the middle of the chaos given your injury.
Without a doubt. So I'm definitely glad he got me off the court because could have went downhill. You just never know.
Then Duke does inbound the ball. The clock does run out. The full celebration begins. What jumps out in your memory about that part?
Getting off the court right away. I just remember I saw everybody. Nobody was back in their original seats. Everybody was around the court. So, just to be able to finish the game, first of all, was super exciting. Having that, clarity just to be able to win in such a high stakes moment. But I think in that moment, the quickest thing that came off was to celebrate quickly, but then get off the court.
You've had a lot of post-game locker room moments. You got to deal with the media. You got to take your shower. You got to get changed. What do you remember about any of that aftermath? Obviously, the media wanted to talk to you, but you got family in the hallway, friends. There's a lot going on after any game, much less that game.
Yeah. It's funny. That was like, I've never had problems with doing media after a game, like especially after a game that we win. I've never had a problem with doing media, but that night I was so eager to head out. I just did not want to do it at all. But obviously, in the moment, in the shot I hit, I knew I had to. But my teammates, they were walking down on me. They were leaving me. They were ready before I was, and they were all heading right the street. Man, I was just getting like, man, I was missing out. I was getting FOMO quick. So that's probably what I remember most. But then as soon as I saw my family, saw them right after that, I gave them big hugs. I told them I love them, and I told them I'll see you tomorrow. So
it's funny that you mentioned earlier, I hadn't thought about NBA scouts or GMs or executives asking you about what you do that night. We were going to ask you what you did that night, and obviously we don't want you to volunteer anything that makes you uncomfortable. But what can you share about Franklin Street, or where you went, or who was with you, how fans reacted to seeing you an hour or so after the game ended or whatever? Anything you're willing to share about what I imagine, Seth, if you're an 80-year-old man, you got to think back to that night. No matter what, you're a fascinating guy beyond basketball, so I think you got all sorts of cool stuff coming your way. But that's got to end up on the short list as one of the coolest nights of your life.
No, it definitely will. That night, the second I got there, Franklin Street. James Brown waited for me. So shout out to my boy James Brown.
Yeah.
One of our managers waited for me. But it was crowded when I got there. I pulled up a little late, but when I got there, all the guys were on top of why am I forgetting the name? The bar on the corner.
A bar?
They were on top of the restaurant bar on the corner of Franklin Street. And I'm blanking on their name for some
is it
reason.
Top of the Hill?
Top of the Hill. I don't know why I just blanked on that. I've been
Hey, good thing you're talking to a UNC grad here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But when I pull up, all the guys are at the top of the hill, right? And everybody's just under him, yelling at him, chanting at him. And Caleb's doing his theatrics. He's holding his belt, and everybody's going crazy. So that's what it was when I put up. And then they came down pretty much like as soon as I got there, just, coincidentally. But as soon as I got there, I couldn't move where I wanted to move. I lost my teammates right away. I mean, I got absolutely mobbed. It was almost too much.
Yeah.
It was almost too much. I got pushed around for a good 30 minutes. I was in that crowd, but they were excited. I was excited. So, that was that. But we ended up being out for a pretty long time that night. And then we lost to Miami about a day and a half later. So
I wondered if you'd bring that up because obviously all celebrations have to end eventually.
Sure.
And you guys had that road trip to Miami, which did not go your way. Do you remember glancing at the clock when you got home the night of the Duke game and, what time in the morning that was that you actually put your head on a pillow?
Yeah, I think I wasn't even out super late, but I didn't go to bed until 4 or 5 a.m. because I just couldn't. The moment just was so surreal. And it when you etch yourself in history like that, I mean, I've grown up watching these games. I was at the Final Four when Kittle Love hit that shot. I remember Austin Rivers hitting that shot, at home. You remember stuff like that. So, being able to process that at night and just, being able to look back at it, I didn't go to sleep until 4 a.m., 5 a.m. that night.
Seth Trimble is joining us on the North Carolina Sports Network. It's funny you remember Austin Rivers because just as that is part of his story for all of eternity, that one shot in that great rivalry, obviously that is going to be at least one of the chapters in your book as well.
For sure.
Give me an idea. Have you encountered any Duke, maybe you have Duke buddies, Duke coaches, Duke players, in the last 5 months, have you encountered them and it comes up, either they bring it up, the shot, or you bring it up when you bump into Blue Devils?
Yeah, only Blue Devils I really bumped into is a former Blue Devil, Mark Mitchell. I worked out with him. He was in my agency, so we worked out the whole summer. He talked about it. He just talked about how crazy it was and how he was sick that I made it. So we joked about that. But that was really it. I did see Coach Cartwright. I saw him, or Coach, what's his name?
Carrawell,
yeah. I saw Coach Carrawell. Sorry, that's my guy. So
all good.
Sorry for butchering his name, but I saw him at the mall at South Point one of the last few weeks I was there. He brought it up jokingly, but that's really it. I haven't had too many encounters with any Duke guys. A Duke fan gave me a little bit of crap in Vegas for hitting that shot, but I like when Duke fans do it. It's it's fun. I can go back and forth with them a little bit, but otherwise that's really it.
All people have small stories of quote unquote their phone blowing up, right?
For sure.
How did that translate for you? I mean, I don't know if it's social media, if it's actual texts or DMs or whatever, but do you remember having any, how did this person get my number, moments or famous former Tar Heels or others who checked in on you in the 24 hours or so after the big shot?
Yeah. A lot of Tar Heels just either texted me, reached out, or gave me that stamp on Instagram, which was super, super cool to see.
Yeah.
Obviously I grew up watching those guys, grew up wanting to be like those guys. So just to get that from them was super cool. But I couldn't even respond to people that night because my phone was so blown up. I mean, I tried my best to respond to my immediate family, the ones I'm closest with, but I think I was literally responding back to people for 4 or 5 straight days. I mean, it was insane the amount of notifications I had. It was crazy. Most I've ever had, sure.
Were most of the guys stamping guys like well, Tar Heels, or like were there some blasts from the past where you were like, oh, it's pretty cool that legendary Tar Heel chimed in?
I've been around North Carolina so long, and they've been here a lot over these last 4 years. But yeah, really has been most that I've known. But it's still just as cool, it don't change none over here for me.
Couple last things for Seth Trimble. You're only about a month into your professional career, technically, I guess, at this point, but you recently represented the Washington Wizards in the NBA Summer League. And in one game I saw, Seth, you put on quite a show, man. 24 points, 8 of 12 from the field, 2 out of 5 3-pointers, 4 out of 5 free throws, 3 rebounds, a block, assist, a steal. I mean, that's a hell of a box score right there, man. What can you tell us about, just these early days of your next level career as a basketball player?
Yeah, I mean, I've very much enjoyed these early days. I think the biggest, takeaway that I've seen is just going into each day with confidence. These guys want to see you be the best version of yourself each and every day, and they really want to help you grow, especially over in DC. So I'm super grateful for the organization I ended up with in the summer and for the rest of the year, I'm sure. But it's been a blessing. It's been just a great experience. I've grown and grown each game of Summer League. I grew each day in our little mini training camp that we had. And, for me, I just love seeing growth. I love seeing myself get more comfortable and, just seeing more things being able to be applied along the way. And that's what happened in Summer League. So great experience. You can't go wrong in Vegas. You can't go wrong in Vegas. But I didn't go wrong in Vegas, so I had a great time, and I was super grateful for the experience. Just trying to build from there.
My son had his bachelor party in Vegas, so I can promise you, yes, you can get in trouble in Vegas if you're not careful. Hey, maybe you guys. Maybe you guys play so much basketball that you just, one play blends into another. But there was a moment where the big fella you mentioned earlier, Henry Vesar, now with the Atlanta Hawks, comes down and he is ready to throw down a big right-handed dunk. And Seth Trimble, at 6'3" or whatever you're listed as, comes up and just flat out swats it down. Do you just let that go? Is there like a little wink just so you remind Henry, I got you?
Yeah, when he went to the bench, I let him know for sure. And I baited him. I knew it was coming, and I knew I was going to be able to get him because that's not really his side where, like, he's his most powerful, jumper. Henry's a right-left type of guy, and when you're on the left side of the court, I think it's easier to jump right-left, and I knew that right away. So I baited him, and I slowed down on him, and I knew I was going to get him. But yeah, I let him hear it. I brought it up a couple nights ago too, but it's dropped now.
I love it. You probably let him hear it with the same smile you're showing us right now.
Sure.
And the last thing, we of course with this visit are celebrating something very, very specific. And thanks for letting us pick your brain about all the aspects of it. As we let you go, in the broader picture, how do you reflect on? I mean, you're celebrated as one of the rare, under the modern rules, transfer portal. You're a 4-year dude, man. I mean, you're going to be celebrated for the shot until after you're no longer on planet Earth, right? But you're also going to be celebrated in that other way. So through your eyes, how do you reflect on that 4-year journey and what place does it have in your heart today and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean it when I say it. Carolina means the absolute world to me. I grew up so much at Carolina. I was a young boy when I came, and I left a young grown man. I was so appreciative of all the things that Carolina brought me, not just basketball, but the connections off of the court. I was able to become a business owner off the basketball court. I was able to build all these beautiful connections, make all these great friends. And on the court, I feel like I grew like no other. I mean, when you look at me, my freshman year, going to my senior year, my growth as a basketball player, as a leader, my mental growth, I mean, I think it's been second to none. And, I credit myself to a lot of that, but I credit the university, the coaches, and the teammates for, being able to change my life in that aspect. So my 4 years have been all about growth and just amazing experiences. And like I said, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, Carolina, that's forever my home right there.
He was a superhero on February 7th, 2026. And even beyond that, he will always be celebrated in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and everywhere Carolina basketball fans love to talk and celebrate this game. If you get a chance, check out his Senior Day speech. He incorporates a lot of these same themes into that. Of course, thanks to YouTube and other places, those are available forever. Seth, thanks for this extended visit on the North Carolina Sports Network. And as we celebrate, truly, 12 months, a lot of sports, college, pro, a lot of options for our voters. Seth Trimble's big shot against Duke was our sports moment of the year. So thanks for helping us celebrate it.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate you having me. And once again, thank you to everybody who voted me.
Some places don't need hype. They already are the hype. Jimmy's at Wrightsville Beach is one of those places. Live music, classic surf bar vibe, and the kind of energy where you walk in knowing you're about to see someone you know, or meet someone you will. Great drinks, great people, and yeah, Cruiser and Cash, the Black Labs, usually hanging by the door or posted up near the bar like they own the place. Which, honestly, they kinda do. You come by to say what's up to a few friends. You catch one song, then another, and next thing you know, it's way later than you planned, but you're exactly where you want to be. If you're looking for a place that feels like Wrightsville Beach has always felt, Jimmy's is waiting. Jimmy's at Wrightsville Beach, the bar for everybody, down on WB. Live music, 365 days a year. Jimmy's, proud supporters of the beach life and the North Carolina Sports Network.
Well, David, tonight we honored a Stanley Cup champion, an ACC championship coach, a title team, an iconic coastal event, and a shot that's already now part of that Battle of the Blues lore. Put it together for us. What does it say about sports in the Bold North State over the last year?
That gets back to something we started the Pineys with a little bit earlier, and that is both achievement at the absolute highest level, sometimes a conference championship, sometimes a national championship at the college level, or this year the biggest celebration, of course, that Stanley Cup title by the Carolina Hurricanes. But when you add depth and diversity beyond that, I think it's one of the things that makes North Carolina special. Just as we love to brag, how many states have great coastal towns and beaches, but also great mountains, but also great lakes, but also great golf courses, and a lot of other things that we could brag about? Lots of states have one of those things, two of those things, maybe even three of those things. Few states have all of those things. Similarly, in sports, few states have a competitor that actually reaches the top of the mountain, Carolina Hurricanes, or some of those college national championships that we celebrate from time to time, but also the depth and diversity. We have a hard time selecting sometimes Coach of the Year, Athlete of the Year, Team of the Year, because there are so many quality candidates. There are so many champions. There are so many All-Americans or All-Stars in the player context. And the diversity we mentioned earlier as well. It's not just a college basketball state. We've become more and more of a hockey state. We have always been, to a degree, a golf state. We've always been, to a great degree, heck, we are the center of the motorsports universe, at least on the NASCAR side, right? We have this thriving fishing tournament at the beach in the form of the Big Rock. We're adding to our collection of PGA Tour and other golf events here from coast to coast in North Carolina. Just as I mentioned with the geographical details and the cultural details, you can make that same kind of diverse, deep, varied list with the sports-related champions, the sports-related events, the sports-related moments. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to create the Pineys, because just as other award shows celebrate their corner of the universe, we at the North Carolina Sports Network partner with some of the best businesses and some of the best business people all across this state. And that makes it even more fun to celebrate all of these great moments that happen routinely, it seems at times, across the Bold North State.
So here we are. It's the outset of August. College teams are reporting back for preseason camp for all of those fall sports. Heck, basketball's already at it. We have a lot of change going into this fourth year of our operation here on the North Carolina Sports Network. Partner, what are you looking forward to the most that you think is going to unfold? Is it going to be on the ice, on the wood, or on the grass? What do you think?
Gosh, it's a wide variety again. That's the key word, because whether you're looking at glass half full, can the Carolina Hurricanes go back to back with Stanley Cup championships? Can the Carolina Panthers go back to back with NFL playoff appearances? Can the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA go from knocking on the door of the postseason, where they have not been very often? Remember last year they got to the play-in game to the playoffs. Can they, with Duke product, Con Knipple, and others, just kind of kick that door down and make our state relevant in the NBA playoffs context, just as our state is always relevant in the college basketball March Madness context? I want to see how those new events, including the new PGA Tour event in Asheville, goes and grows. I want to see how the Big Rock, I mean, they're about to pass the $10 million a year in prize money threshold, which is just an amazing accomplishment, especially for an event that, as you mentioned earlier, pours a lot of money back into charitable causes and into our community. I want to see if the Bill Belichick era at Carolina, one of the most famous coaches in sports history, takes a turn for the better, takes a turn for the worse. Regardless, there are going to be big headlines in Chapel Hill. And obviously in college sports, we just have a potpourri of accomplished programs, up-and-coming coaches, all-American caliber athletes, and sometimes off-the-beaten trail stories like, a Johnson C. Smith in college football or a High Point in men's basketball to go along with what UNC and Duke and State and Wake and ECU at times and App State at times and the Charlotte 49ers at times. There are always stories worth celebrating in our state. That's one of the reasons you and I decided to create the North Carolina Sports Network, and it's one of the reasons we always look forward to this once-a-year edition of the Pineys. We are never going to run out of big stories to share and to cover and to celebrate, and those are at least among the things I'm looking forward to during this upcoming 2026-2027 cycle.
It's the opportunity to tell these stories of the bold North State, all the way from Jocelyn Stamper, who might be the best athlete that you've never really heard about, that we're going to tell you about on an upcoming episode of Bold North State, all the way through some of the great interviews that David Glenn has in store for us here in the fall of 2026. We have the Coach's Room coming your way here later up in August with Tim Brewster and Jim Collins, Nolan Jones, guys who have been on the sidelines in those meeting rooms. They know the insides of college football. And then coming around the corner, we have basketball. We have Kerry Keating. We have some other surprise guests from the basketball side to join David Glenn and talk about the backbone of North Carolina sports, and that's college basketball. Be sure to follow us at the NC Sports Net on social media and also at ncsportsnetwork.com online. We have a great website. We have great multimedia platforms. Our Instagram feed is really getting hot, so be sure to follow us and enjoy coverage of the greatest sports state in America. That is the bold North State, North Carolina. I'm Mike Waddell, and this has been the Pineys on the North Carolina Sports Network.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the North Carolina Sports Network. Follow us across social media by clicking at the NC Sports Net and on our website, ncsportsnetwork.com. NCSN is the exclusive home of The David Glenn Show, featuring North Carolina's top sports journalists and the conversations that matter most across the state. The Bold North State Tailgate, where we take you on the ground and inside North Carolina's biggest games, events, and traditions. The Coach's Room, delivering coach-driven football and basketball analysis from those who know the games from the inside. This Was Then, looking back at the legends, moments, and stories that shape sports across North Carolina. Road to Augusta with Ward Clayton, the ultimate North Carolina lead-in to golf's greatest tradition. And the North Carolina Sports Awards, better known as the Pineys, celebrating the very best in sports as voted on by the fans. From the mountains to the coast, the Piedmont to the Sandhills, from high school to college to the pros, and everything in between. We are the voice of the bold North State. This is NCSN, the North Carolina Sports Network.